Hello, welcome to Hope for Flint. I am your host, Kristen Wolosinovich, and guess what? We've got the HAP CRIM, Festival of Races Foundation, the Executive Director, Andrew Younger, in the Hope for Flint downtown Ferris Wheel Studios. Hi. That's
Excited
a breath.
to be here.
That is a breath. Andrew Younger, we've been friends for a few years.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you in the new studio. You like
This
it?
is beautiful. Love it. Great setting. Yeah.
We're so happy to have you here, and we're here to talk about the most recent HAP CRIM Festival of Races, another major success, no doubt in my mind.
It was really, from an experience standpoint, really the best that we've had in a long, long time. We know that just from our formal feedback, but also just people coming up to us. People don't normally come up to you at these kinds of events and say, I had such a great time. But they did this year. It was just so nice.
You know, it's funny because you and I have had this conversation. Flint's been through some rough patches for a few years, and we always knew the CRIM would kind of be that light, that ray of light. So it was always a magical day. But what I'm kind of getting from you right now is there's something even more special that's happening. And would you attest it to the city, the energy and what's coming into the city?
I really think so. I think that there are really great things happening in the city. People are starting to recognize that, and we are getting over sort of that shock and stigma that we've been dealing with for so long. And certainly there are challenges, but at the same time, we also need to be focused on positive things that are happening and build and grow those. And we're so proud and to be at the forefront of that. And we take that very seriously. It's very important for us to not just create a great day for Flint and Genesee County, but to be ambassadors for the whole world. We have as many people do the race from outside Genesee County as we do who come in, who are from Genesee County. So it is it's about a 50-50 ratio of people who come. So it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, look at how great our town is.
Would you say those numbers increased this year from both sides, both within the county and outside the county?
We're actually about flat this year. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, in the general racing world, a lot of established races that are have been around as long as the CRIM, they are actually seeing some declines because there are so many other things to do, and the fact that we are maintaining our numbers is a big deal.
Impressive.
It says a lot. Yeah. So we're, I always would like to see it grow. We always want to see more people do it, but at the same time, it's a big deal that we are holding where other people are decreasing.
Well, and let's talk about those numbers. They're massively impressive.
Yeah.
How many register for the race?
So we had about 12,000 this year, and we've had more, and especially on anniversary years, and that's to be expected. On like the 40th, we were close to 16,000, but then we always kind of level back off, or in that neighborhood of 12, 13,000, and so that we were happy with the numbers, so that's great. What also is important though is that we get about 40,000 people downtown total. Because you've got not just the racers, but volunteers and the spectators. And our job is not just to put on a great race, but a great party. And so that's what we try and do all on that day.
It was that was my next question, because the racers, that number is one thing, but the participants is a whole other ballgame. So you're looking at 50 to 60,000 people downtown of all race, religion, socioeconomic.
Everything.
It crosses children. I mean, and you run, multiple races. I always tell this story. Zach, I'll tell you this story. I was with all the moms in our active wear, and our kids were like 5 at the time, back when we were happy to be alive.
Sure. Yeah. You were awake.
Drinking my coffee, signed. We had this genius idea, us moms, to sign these young ones for the 1 mile, the teddy bear.
Yeah.
And so Milo was about 5 or 6, and we all went down there, and she took off, and she was winning the race, literally. Very competitive. Andrew, I was very, very proud. So I slowly walked to the end because I know she's going to win it. And every kid that I was with passed the finish line except her. Now I'm worried. Oh, my gosh, is she okay? Well, she did show up at the very end group, and she told me never to sign her up for the CRIM race again. She asked me if I literally knew how much a mile was. And then she reminded me if I remember that she had asthma. So
oh, no.
That's her one and done, but she did finish the race and it was a great day. And I personally do know what the mile is because I've ran the 10 mile probably 6 or 7 times in my lifetime.
I love it.
And
Great.
it is magic.
It is amazing. I have to say, before we get into the 10 mile, you are not alone as a parent. Even as the race director, our daughters, we have literally carried them through like more than half of even a quarter mile race. Now they're excited about it, but when they were little, not fans.
So you feel my pain.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, what a beautiful event. And what a privilege for you to be a part of it. It's such an exciting, and it's a year in the making, and it's a huge event, and year over year, you never disappoint. And tell us a little bit about the origin of the race with Bobby Krim.
Sure. And I have to acknowledge it absolutely is a privilege. It's something I see myself as the steward of a wonderful tradition. And that tradition was started back in, the first race was in 1977. The idea started back in 1976 when Bobby Krim, who at the time was the Speaker of the House of Representatives for Michigan, the state of Michigan, he was in the Flint district, saw a Special Olympics race and was so inspired to help them and by those athletes that he wanted to see that grow. And he happened to be into running himself and thought, well, if we put together a race, maybe we can raise a few bucks, and then we'll call it good.
On a small scale.
So, yeah.
He had no clue.
No, not at all. So that first race that happened in 1977, all volunteers who put it together. It actually started on Mott Community College's campus, and it finished downtown.
Okay.
So 2 different spots. Oddly enough, it started at noon. So
Is that funny?
Yeah. So thankfully,
There's
that
been
part
some
has changed.
changes.
Yes, some improvements. But one thing that has held is that it is since that first one, we have held to the 4th Saturday of August. So,
wow.
so
No
if
matter
you ever
what.
wonder, yep. So
that's great.
For better or for worse,
Yeah, there's some rich tradition in that. You've made some changes, but the 4th Saturday has remained.
And it really took off. I mean, in the 70s, there was this real boom of running. And so it was kind of the perfect time to start a big race, or to start a race that then could catch on and become a tradition. There are, if you look at some of the more important and popular races throughout the country, even, they all started right around that time. So that's kind of nice to be part of that little group of races. But there were only 750 people at that first one.
Wow.
And then and it was meant almost more to be like a spectator event, not so much a participant event.
Well, and in the 70s, sorry to interrupt you though, Flint was booming. Like during the 70s, 80s, well, even into the 90s, Flint was a very robust automotive manufacturing economic town. So the race, was probably just fun. It was just more awareness and fun and exercise, where I think the shift began when, we saw the automotives leave, the city struggle, then that race really became a pillar of hope.
It did. And that's actually also sort of the reason that we went from being just a race and even a festival of races to the Krim Fitness Foundation, which is really focused all year long on creating a more vibrant and active community throughout all of Genesee County. But in particular with Flint, that's really kind of where we ended up being able to prove out our commitment to the community. For a while, we were, as the race progressed, we had some nice ideas about, let's get kids into running, because then maybe they'll grow up and start running
Become
the Krim.
runners.
Yeah,
yes.
And same with even adults, and help them get into the training program so that they then can run the Krim more often. So what started as almost more of like a self-serving program became crucially important when, for a while in Flint, the funds were so tight with the Flint Community Schools that the Krim was providing the only physical education that kids were getting. And that's when our board realized, hey, wait a minute, we're really doing something important here.
Yes, you knew the shift. It really became a movement.
Absolutely.
And when there were massive cutbacks on, the fire department, the police department, and the crime increased and people moved out of the city, the foundation was so key because the community was still out on the streets, running, exercising, working out. You still saw hope and health.
Right. And what's interesting is I see, especially with our adult training program, but even with our kids programs, we very intentionally are out and about in the streets, in the sidewalks, in neighborhoods throughout the city, throughout the county, because that in itself is an inspiring factor and a motivating factor for other people. And they say, oh, well, those people are doing it. Maybe I could do that.
It's wonderful to see.
It's a big deal.
You guys are amazing. So you got a big race coming up November 9th.
That's right.
5K on the runway.
That's right. The first ever. Not only is this the first ever race that we're doing on Bishop Airport at Bishop Airport on a runway, it is the first ever race that's been held on Bishop Airport's runways, or even on the property there at Bishop Airport. And people are super excited about this.
I'm going to sign up and run it.
It's going to be awesome.
I'm not going to lie, I haven't ran in a while, and I can probably swing a 5K, and I want to start running again because it is so cathartic. It is so it's so great for you.
Yeah, it's a reward in itself. Like what happens, what we found is that people start running because they have a goal, like running a crim or doing, a 5K, or they want to like lose weight, like they have something, and they see running as sort of like an efficient and usually fairly comparatively inexpensive means to get to that goal. And what ends up happening is that
I do know what happens.
It becomes the reward in itself. You just fall in love with it. And it's great.
And also, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but even like psychiatrists, mental health experts, professionals are wanting to start putting exercise in front of medication, starting out, care plans with exercise versus automatically putting people on psychiatric meds, because what happens during the run, I used to run all the time. I ran daily. It releases the endorphins. There's so much from a mind, body, soul that running does, other than just the physicality of it, that is, like you said, is just really overwhelmingly rewarding.
Yeah, and it's giving you, yes, you have those physiological benefits of like, yes, you're getting your body in shape, but yeah, you get these whether it's hormones or other things that make you feel better.
Yes.
But it's also just giving yourself that time to be you.
Self-care.
Self-care, absolutely. And so you're dedicating that time to yourself. And we don't always have that time in certain parts, phases of our lives. I understand that. But you can give yourself 20, 30 minutes. We don't have to all be training for a marathon.
I agree with you.
It's 20, 30 minutes a day or several days a week is all you
is
need.
Key.
And it makes a huge difference in the quality of your life.
And during that time, like you said, it's really massive self-care, and it's almost a form of meditation because you become just really being. And a lot of times that helps you, we talk about like you're laying in bed and, oh my gosh, I have to do this tomorrow and that tomorrow and I miss this. And, the thoughts race, and that causes insomnia, and lots of other things going on in our life. And during the practice of meditation, it's shutting the noise down and really focusing and breathing. And we'll get more into this because the crim is so big on mindfulness, and that running really kind of naturally helps turn the noise off and allows you to be, which is a form of meditation. So we highly recommend it. And so November 9th, how can people sign up?
Yep, you can go to crimraces.org or even just crim.org, and you can find it that way. But that's the easiest, crimraces.org. You can sign up online. You can even come to the Crim office. We're right downtown.
It's cool.
Yeah, we love being downtown, right on Saginaw Street, and you can sign up right there too.
We recommend you get into the building too, because when you walk in, it is really an experience, and to see kind of the rich history of the race itself. But you also have massive affirmations and great inspirational quotes and great pictures, and it's just a really good space to kind of get in and experience.
They were pretty lucky to get to be in there.
We recommend it. Another thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bishop Airport and their real big community efforts and outreach. I know they're partnering.
Terrific. Absolutely terrific, yeah.
Partnering with collaborating with a lot of beautiful organizations such as the Crim, and I know the mayor's working a lot with Bishop, and I know they're also bringing in some new flights that and new airlines for new locations and really amping up the game. And what a great airport to fly in and out of. It's like heaven.
It is. I mean, especially when you compare. I know people who live closer to Metro who choose to drive up to Bishop because it's that much easier to get in and out of. The flights, they're not paying more for, for a lot of them. And so it's just a great place to get in and out of.
It's beautiful. So
real asset.
Props to Bishop Airport. Okay, real quickly, let's talk about the mindfulness program. I know that's a core objective of the CRIM Foundation. I know that the CRIM Foundation is benchmark and gold standard nationwide when it comes to mindfulness and the program and what you've brought into the school systems. Tell us a little bit about that effort.
Sure. I mean, in the origins of us even getting into mindfulness were that we had this idea that we want people to have a quality of life, and we know that having a healthy body is a big part of that. And so we had physical activity, nutrition, programming, and education. But we realized, well, wait a minute, our brains are a very important part of our body.
Yes.
You can't have a healthy body truly without having a healthy brain.
That's exactly right.
And that's where mindfulness comes in, because it is it's such a simple thing. It's not just, meditation is a form of mindfulness. Yoga is a form of mindfulness, but it's essentially this, it's an exercise and a set of
practice.
Techniques. Yeah, a practice where you essentially, clear your mind, like you were saying, focus on one thing, and and it can be your breathing, and just try and let everything else go. And what that does is it's essentially, it's like an exercise for your brain. It's like, exercising a muscle, and of course you're not going to be able to only focus on your breathing for a super long period of time, especially the first several times you do it. But that's okay. And that's the other thing is that, I think that one of the intimidating things about mindfulness, just like running, the first several times you try it, it's not going to be great. It's not going to be, but you will still, your body will respond. Even the first time you try it, it will respond positively. Your mind will respond positively.
And I have to say, being someone extremely busy, very active, raising kids, it is hard to do sometimes, but it is very necessary, as we said, especially for, like you said, longevity, mind, body, soul. It takes a lot of practice, but what it does too, especially with the hyper focus on the breathing, it allows the body to reset.
Exactly. One of the things, and you're right, I mean, in our daily lives,
crazy
it is
daily
really
lives.
Crazy. It's really you would think it'd be hard to, but there are nice little techniques you can do. Like, for instance, you can associate something that you normally do. Say, like when you get up out of a chair, when you put your hands on the arms of the chair, you can kind of use that as a trigger. And all you have to do is think to yourself, I am here now. And like, it's sort of all those other things, the appointments, the lists that you have going through your head,
tasks.
Let those go and just say, I'm here right now. And it's, it doesn't have to be that hands-on chair. That's kind of an easy one, but it could be anything. But it's you can do those, and that in itself is mindfulness, and it helps.
You are
great.
not the first person who is a subject matter expert in this who has brought up the focus of hands.
Oh, yeah.
To breathe, and if you are becoming overwhelmed, just stare at your hands or take a second, like you said, to feel where your hands are, to lift up and really hyper focus on the hands. So it's really interesting.
Well, and for me, it helps. It's important to be aware of where your body is, where my body is, and what it's doing and how it's feeling. And we don't give ourselves that opportunity very often to really ask yourself, how am I feeling? How are my toes feeling? How are my ribs feeling?
Well, we weren't programmed like that.
Right.
So it's this whole new way of thinking, this very, spiritual, kind of spiritual age, spiritual awakening, mindfulness, but now becoming mainstream, but so important because you have brought this program into the school system. And it's so important for these kids who are dealing with social media, constant stimuli, constant expectations, constant triggers. Obviously, the school shootings, we never had this back in our day.
Right.
They sold bulletproof backpacks this year. So what it is shifting the reaction from anger, hostility, to more calm, more controlled, more empowerment.
Right.
And that in itself is exactly where these kids need to be led in the future of how we raise these children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether kids are growing up in Flint or anywhere. Other school, they are, any other city, they are, they're dealing with stressors, in a level of stress that we probably didn't have to worry about. And that's what mindfulness is all about. And I do need to say, mindfulness, especially the way that we present it, is it's 100% secular. That's, and I don't think we'd be invited into the schools if it were at all, tied tied to any kind of religion.
Oh,
It
yes.
has some
Yeah.
roots in religion, but,
Sure.
but what's great is that
It's more behavioral, cognitive behavioral.
and there's a lot of great science behind it that's showing not just like the social science of behavior and behavioral science, but also even neurology, and there are impacts that it has on our physiology, the physiology of the brain, where it enhances neural connections.
I agree.
It's really amazing. It's great stuff.
The benefits of mindfulness are, like you said, the science does not lie. The empirical data supports it 100%, and as do we. It's a practice, and we love what you're doing, so keep up the excellent work.
Well, thank you.
So, Andrew Younger, I mean, I get so passionate when we sit down and talk about this because the crim, like we said, is such a staple in our society, in our city, and really across society. It is such a benchmark, gold standard race. And when you recognize the race itself, which is one day of the year, but it takes massive year-round preparation for it because it is such a undertaking, but to incorporate the year-round crim training, the other kind of ancillary races, like you say, 5K on the runway, it's so important what you do for the city. The mindfulness program, get into the downtown building, check them out. Check out their website. You're always looking for donations or volunteers because you are a foundation. We highly recommend that people check the Crim Foundation out. I mean, we all know who you are. You are who you are. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the Crim Foundation, CRIM, we highly recommend that you do some research on them.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And I must say this, I am, as big as the race is, what's sort of interesting, but also I see is very exciting, is that we've almost become, even though we're the brand leader, that's what people think of when they think of the Crim. Our staff has really expanded so far beyond the race. Now our team that puts together the race is actually one of the smaller groups of people within the organization. So, our nutrition teams, our physical activity and sports teams, our mindfulness teams, they've grown so much. And, and it's just a privilege to get to be a part of it and to incorporate those things into the race and have those things even enhance the race. So yeah, we have it's such a wonderful organization to be a part of, and we see it as it's all about Flint. The Crim wouldn't exist if it weren't for Flint, and just the way that the Flint area is, and the spirit and the soul of the city. It's such a great fit and perfect fit for the race and for the organization overall.
Well, that's very well said. And on that note, I couldn't, listen, I like to talk a lot, but I couldn't have said it better. It's beautiful. Andrew Younger, race director, HAP Crim Festival of Races, the Crim Foundation. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for all you're doing.
You definitely are, sir. And Bobby Crim, hope for Flint.